This inspired living episode is a long time coming. It is with my dear girlfriend of over 25 years, Jennifer Adams. She started off cleaning houses when she was in high school to make ends meet, and now she owns a multiple eight-figure brand, Jennifer Adams Home. And in this interview, she talks about how she started. She talks about how she made the shift from a service based business to a product based business, some of the greatest advice that she's heard, and some of the mistakes she's made along the way. Jennifer was one of the catalysts to me launching the Brilliant event, which is one of our signature events at Inspired Living that is going to be happening this September 2022, because we have these really deep conversations about the risks that we take, the rewards that we feel, the overwhelm that we all feel with growing a business. And yet there's few people you can really be honest about that conversation with. And Jen has been one of those girlfriends that has been such a catalyst in my life. She actually inspired me to start my first business, which was interior decorating in my 20s. And we've just really been through so much together. And I'm so grateful for the friendship we have. I'm grateful for the insight she brings to you and the inspired living community. So if you're in a place where you have a dream, maybe you're working in a service-based business and you really want to think about what products you can bring to the marketplace and how you can really stand out and really live that dream you see for yourself, you are going to love this Inspired Living interview with my dear, dear friend, Jennifer Adams.
Miss Jennifer Adams, you have no idea how excited I am to finally get you on this show. It has been a long time coming.
Likewise, I'm so excited that I can't believe that we're finally just now doing this.
I know we've only been friends for 25 years, but better late than never. And, you've spoken at the Brilliant event. We definitely have, collaborated in the past. Jen, what I always love about you is the time that we're sipping over a glass of wine. And it was really one of the things that inspired Brilliant was the conversations we had around our businesses and what we were going through. And my thought was, why are we the only ones having these conversations? We need to have more of these conversations. So thank you. I know you're super busy. Where are you in the world today?
I'm actually my Scottsdale, Arizona office. So I've got kitchen behind me, but I'm not in the prettiest environment for a podcast, but it's real life in the middle of the day. So it's what's happening. But you're right about those wine moments that we have, those in between amazing moments where brilliance can come about. And I love that you turned that into your Brilliant event. And I actually didn't realize that till right this moment. And because there's something about having a glass of wine with a girlfriend where we let out our deepest, darkest secrets. Mm-hmm. And sometimes we don't do in other environments. So your event is a place where it's cozy for women and you encourage us all to be so vulnerable, talk about our, what we struggle with and our successes. So I love that it came about from wine nights. That's great.
It did. That's exactly where it came about. You and Dana Deckard, the conversations we would have. And I was just like, we need more women. First of all, only 2% of women will ever gross businesses over $1 million. And Jen, you have an 8-figure business. You've accomplished so much in your life. And I'm so proud of you. I mean, again, we go back to step aerobics, when I'm 18, 19, you're 20, I still admire your calves to this day, but, let's go back. So you've built really this empire, Jen. You have Jennifer Adams Home. By the way, if you are ever looking for the best set of sheets on the planet, look no further. You just need to go get Jen sheets because you will never sleep as good as you will in those sheets. But let's go back, Jen. Obviously, you have come from humble beginnings and you have built an incredible product-based business. I bring a lot of service-based entrepreneurs onto the show, and I love that you have a product-based business. And even though you are very well known in your industry, what I also admire is that you aren't a Kathy Ireland. You're not a Martha Stewart. You're not a household name, although you are very well known. So let's be honest about that. But I also think a lot of people feel like they have to be a celebrity to launch a successful product business. So take me back, Jen. Take me back to where it all started.
Well, first I have to say thanks a lot. I think Martha, supermodels, maybe not super models. And you're like, obviously that's not you.
I did. I did not mean it that way.
It was so funny funny at first. That's what came. Yeah, of course I'm not. They didn't. They both had modeling backgrounds.
Oh my gosh, that's so funny. I did not mean it that way. Jen, you are stunning, but okay.
Thank you. But I'll tell you, looking at her journey taught me a lot because they started from a modeling background. So it's actually kind of funny that you said that, because Martha Stewart was always someone I looked to when I wasn't feeling quite fulfilled in the business that I had built. And I was like, how did she ever take her business to a product-based business as opposed to a services business? Because she was a caterer. And that required a lot of her personal attention. And then come to find out she was actually a model before that. And so watching that trajectory, it really showed me by example that it doesn't matter where you start. It's your starting point for your next version of yourself. And when I can keep drawing on that, Kathy Ireland, so she was a supermodel, and she got her start in socks. And who would have ever thought that socks would be such a big, huge, like she had her entire business operating on socks that were licensed. And then from there, she transitioned into the home business. But you wouldn't think she'd have challenges, but she had a lot of challenges along the way because she was a swimwear model and no one would take her seriously.
Right.
It's one of those reminders that where you see somebody today is never, hardly ever where they started, and you have to still jump in the arena. And I think the question you asked is what advice would I have for somebody?
Well, where did you get started? How did you, what was your launching point to, Jennifer Adams Home, and, knowing that you started with really humble beginnings? Like, how did you get into bedding and building out this amazing brand that you have now?
Thank you for getting me back on topic.
You're welcome. But actually, I love the story of Kathy and Martha because, again, it's such a great example of you see empires that are built, and it started with socks. In a million years. And you also think just because someone is a celebrity in some way, that it makes the path easier. And sometimes it's actually a hindrance because you already have kind of the stereotype of what you were versus who you want to become, right? Very two different things.
It's so true. And even as it's talking about stereotypes, they can come from all different places. They can come from your family. So for example, I was a receptionist when I started off being an interior designer, when I was a glorified interior decorator. My family didn't even think about me when they needed carpet for their home because they thought of me as a receptionist. And so you can get stereotyped along the way from all different places that you wouldn't expect. In places where you think you're going to get the most support, it doesn't always come from there. So you have to really muster up that courage and that belief that this is who you are. And then your follower, everyone will start following along. My family now does buy my bedding from me.
It took them a minute. Well, it's like when I closed the talent agency and I'm building Inspired Living. For so many years, it was like, what are you doing? How are you successful? Like, didn't you have this failure? And you kind of get labeled the thing that you were. And as you're growing, sometimes it's the closest people next to you that actually give you like the most resistance. And that's why I feel like it is so important to go find your brilliant tribe and to have girlfriends and people that you can go to, because some of the people in your past, right, can't see your future. That's not their job to see that. It's your job.
It is your job. And I got goosebumps when you said that about having your tribe around you, because it doesn't matter what people think of us, but it's a lot easier when we have supporters and champions that we can celebrate our successes with or cry to.
Yeah.
It's getting started. I grew up very poor, like you did as well, and many people watching us. I cleaned house. I picked strawberries first for my first job, and then cleaned houses with my sister all through high school, even for a year after high school, and also worked at odds jobs throughout high school. Then after I didn't go to college, I went just directly working because I really wanted to make money. So I thought being a receptionist was a good way to make some money. So I did that. So a discomfort can actually be the springboard for your next best version of yourself. Because when we get just comfortable, too complacent, that's actually we should embrace it and enjoy it. but it's not always the safest place for evolution of your life, because it's your life can go up and down, up and down. You're always hoping that that up and down curve continues to go up, but you'll have failures, you'll have challenges along the way. When
Mhm.
you're at the top, that's where it's easy to take your eyes off of your goals and really just coast. And that's where challenges can sneak up on you. And then you can get some force change that you maybe weren't quite aware was coming your way. So
Yeah.
when you have things that keep you a little bit on edge, it keeps your eye on the prize and eye on the ball so that you can comfortably be comfortable in your life, knowing that you are watching out
Don't you
for.
think that's like the constant state of entrepreneurship? Is like you're never really comfortable. Like you might reach a certain goal, but then there's another sense of discomfort. And I was just having a conversation with someone the other day, Jen, and I said, sometimes what is easy is not safe. Like we think it's safe to stay in our job or stay in a relationship, but it's actually not. It's the thing that's going to hold us back. It's the thing that's going to keep us um, like uncomfortable and unfulfilled. So sometimes what is easy is not always safe. And so you had this discomfort. You decided to do what? What did you do after that?
So I went to a 6-week trade school for interior decorators.
I
And
know that trade school.
yes, you went to it as well, which is so neat that we felt that we did that.
You
Uh,
inspired me, Jen.
thank you. And I, that's goes back to, I was talking about the exposure, having
Yeah.
exposure to other people's lives can set an example, as long as it doesn't become a comparison. Like, I need to be doing that because that person's doing that. And then you feel like a failure for not doing it. Like, comparing yourself is so dangerous. Exposure, where you have a curious mindset and say like, oh, that's curious. Would that work for me or not work for me? It sets an example, shows path options, but it should not be something that causes you to feel less than, because you're not
I love
choosing to
that.
do it.
Envy versus exposure. I love
Yeah.
that. And you can choose like what is the drive here? Right? Is it the envy of what someone else is doing, or is it the curiosity? Is it the exposure to something new that you might be interested in? I really love that differentiation there.
And it is a big difference.
Yeah.
So, but then when I took that trade school, I had an amazing instructor. She was the owner of the school. It's very, very small outside of Portland, Oregon, and it's called Heritage School of Interior Design. It may be bigger now, but back then, 20 years ago, it was small. And she really taught me a lot about marketing and that people buy from people. I didn't have any decorating skills, but I started my business very, very small and was able to grow. But the piece, and I can get into that, but I'll jump to, I think, where you're wanting to know the pivot point into products,
Yes.
because
Yeah.
I was a service business that could only go so far. At least it could probably go farther if I wanted to really bring on a much larger team and diversify in things. But I got an opportunity to be on a TV show, and thanks to actually you had a connection of yours, and she told me that HGTV was going to be in town. And then when you did that, you got me an interview, and I got the position for a season on a TV show called My First Place. And I did it
Yes.
kicking. I did not want to do it. And Harry kept saying, you have to send me a bio. And I think I sent you 3 sentences and
I
dragged
think
it.
I went and like got one somewhere and like was like
Yeah,
submitting for you.
you can take my photo off my website because I was
Yeah.
too busy, supposedly, to hassle with this. And then that exposure in a small town drew attention from another TV show that was filming their live as a test pilot, and they were in Portland, and they paid attention to the fact that HGTV was there, and I got hired to be on a TV show called The Better Show as their on-air interior designer, which sounds way more glamorous than it was. It literally was going up live every other week on a local news station for 4 minutes. That time commitment, though, and that effort really springboarded my business in major ways. So if you have,
Wait, Jen, wait.
yeah,
I just have to go back to this because not only was it every other week for 4 minutes, right? And you're like, I'm going to do this. Were you paid to do that?
there was a point at the beginning, no. And then at the second, eventually when I was a regular and the show took off, and then it went live in Las Vegas when I was flying to Las Vegas one week, kept going to Portland one week and taking a lot of prep time for each segment and paying for my
Yeah.
own flight away and hotels and everything. I think I was making $330 per episode. So
Right. So this is talking about like paying your dues and really understanding the leverage and power that media can give you, right? If you use it and you know how to use it and you build those relationships with the networks. And it's something that most people forget about. And they're usually looking for like, I want to be paid to do this, or they don't even know to go out there and get that exposure. But it was a huge launching pad for you getting into the product side of what it is
it
you do now.
it was. And then so the HGTV was for one season. The Better Show was 8 seasons. And so then I was also without TV for a while. And I'll talk about that in a second, because then I was able to layer it back in and what I think you're getting at. So with the TV part of it, because I was putting so much time into this, and I was talking about interior design, and people would call our office that would see the show and said, can you come out to my house? They'd be scary circumstances, and there's no way I was going to go out to my house. So then all of a sudden it dawned on me, like, wait a minute, I'm not going to make any money from this.
Yeah.
Clients that are calling because would be dangerous. And the gentleman who had come to Seth Feldman, who came to Portland, who you and I both know, and
Yes.
he said to me, he said, now that you have more exposure, why don't you think about creating a product line? And because then you could reach more people. And I didn't know anything about manufacturing. I knew nothing about developing products. And I think that naivety helped me, because I literally knew nothing. And I started an idea that was called a 5-minute makeover in a bag, and not realizing that takes a ton of product and a ton of manufacturers, a lot of importing, a lot of minimums, things I didn't know about. And then I realized I was working on, so it's like, okay, I've always been a believer, if you're passionate about something, it will succeed. I wish it was that easy, but that was my mindset.
Right. Right.
Yes.
But like you said, like sometimes if we knew better, we wouldn't even get started. Like sometimes
Yeah.
being naive and not knowing what we're getting into, again, it's kind of that sense of curiosity and like, hey, like what can go wrong? Like, let's just
That's
give
how
it a whirl.
That's what I thought. And I grew up making people's beds for a living. And then as a designer, at the time I was designing a resort in Mexico, and I was being paid to develop sleep systems for these villas for all the different beds. And so I was researching fabrics, working with all different people in the industry, and ended up stumbling on a fabric eventually outside of this project. But that project brought into my mind, I'm obsessed with the sleep experience. I love it. And then I ended up finding this fabric randomly that hadn't really been exposed to the home. And it was just so, so, so soft. And I went to the VP of the show that I was on. At this point, everything had been moved to New York. I was filming freelance between Arizona and California, and then they would piece it into the show in New York, unless I happened to be in New York and working there. So I met with the VP in New York. I hadn't been to New York very often at this point, and I showed up with my portfolio. I hadn't yet launched the product. And I said, would you be willing to partner with me and give me commercials for this product instead of paying me to be on the show? I did not get a yes soon. In fact, it took 9 months, but I finally did get a yes.
What a genius idea, Jen. I didn't know that. That is a genius idea.
Thank you. Well, it was planted in me from Seth. He just said, just ask. They could say no, but just ask.
Right. Yeah.
And so in that trade for my service, to get that exposure from a marketing perspective was worth its weight in gold. Like,
sure.
I didn't just say, no, I need to be paid. There was something that was more valuable to me into getting that exposure of my brand and my products early on. And then I was able to launch a web-based business to start. And then there are a lot of different ways you can get your product launched right now, easier than any time before, because you can have e-com businesses. Back then, they weren't as there weren't as many e-com businesses at this point, and marketing avenues. do on the web. And a lot of times you're beholden to a buyer of a retailer, and then you pitch it to a buyer just to be told, no, that's not exactly what we're looking for. And you go on and on and on. But with an e-com business, you really are in control of your destiny and how you
Yeah.
want to get that product to get it out. So it's actually helped, even though we sell at retail, having the ability to sell directly to our customers is
Huge.
it is so huge. And there's so
Yeah.
many different ways you can do it and really find your own unique, what separates you. Because when I started, everybody, at the beginning, when I dreamed and I said, I'm going to create a bedding brand, sheets are going to be my business. Everybody told me not to do it. And they said, walk down
Really?
Bed Bath and Beyond, look at how many bedding brands are there. Everyone's got sheets. And let me tell you about this person that failed and that person that failed. And
You're like, and thank you very much for that.
yeah. Yes. But failure is also a breeding ground for success, because failure is where the learning comes from. So even if like I fail, I learn from that and I'm further ahead from somebody else that hasn't failed yet, and vice versa, all their failures. So when you learn from people's failures, it's a huge gift to hear that, because then you can think, what do I need to do differently? And I had done the homework to know, okay, there are a lot of beds in this world. We all need to sleep. We all need a comfortable sleep experience. And I truly felt that I had something unique in the fabric that I had. And so I believed in it, but it started small. I had to keep my day job for a very long time. Like I still had to run my services business of the interior design firm. In fact, the very first shipment of bedding I had, I stored underneath our offices at my design firm. And I fulfilled every order. I picked them, packed them, and sent them out. And then eventually, as we grew, we got a warehouse. But I'll tell you, even right now, with the size of our business in the US and Canada and Mexico, I don't own a warehouse. I don't have all those warehouse employees. I use a 3PL, which is a third-party logistics company, because they have the big warehouses, they have the employees, have all the sophisticated software. So it's not like you need to go and invest to have these fulfillment centers when there's so many people that are in the business of doing that with all the latest technology. So you can build, just like I did when I was doing interior design business, I built my team slowly as I needed it. And I relied on freelance help for so long. At our business right now, we still run with a very lean employee count. We utilize a lot of freelance people because they specialize in certain things versus us just having a bunch of generalists on our team. So like our warehouse, it's a specialist that specializes in that. So then we're not having to be bogged down with the day-to-day of that. Even our logistics, we have a logistics company that manages our logistics. So we're not bogged down in that day-to-day of that. And we can work on the product development that we do so well and really bring innovation to help our customers and creating content to like enrich everyone's lives so they can don't have to hire a designer and they can have a beautiful home environment on their own. So we can focus on what we specialize and not
I
have
love that. Yeah, you don't have to have a huge team. And I love that idea of outsourcing. Go find the people that are experts, right, at what they do and go align with them. And, I know you have some amazing books out there and you really do help people love coming home. And that really is the heartbeat of everything that you do. And I will tell you, nothing to me in my life right now is better than a good night's sleep. I mean, literally, Jen, like I crawl into my sheets at night and it truly is a slice of heaven. But I'm curious for those people who are starting out or who have an idea, and I love that you were told no by everyone, and they're like go through the line and see all the sheets, and yet you knew you were onto something. What have been, let's just kind of like drill it down to maybe like what has been two of the greatest lessons that you've learned, and maybe two of what you would consider like the greatest learnings. We don't want to say mistakes because, we all make them, especially if you're an entrepreneur, it's part of life. But what have been like maybe two of the greatest lessons that you've had?
It's a good question.
I know there are so many.
There are so many. I'll tell you what I'm going through right now. In fact, one that I'm going through right now is not taking the time to pay attention to some of the aspects that I don't do well in my business and pretending that like, if I don't pay attention to it doesn't.
If I don't see it, it's not there.
Yeah. Yes.
Yeah.
And I let my eye off of our inventory over the past year and committed to a lot of new innovation and a lot of colors and a lot of SKUs, like so much to launch on different platforms, different channels for different retailers and things, and really got our inventory levels driven up quite high. That's my fault. It's no one else's fault besides mine. I approved each purchase. I just wasn't paying attention to how quickly our inventory levels were growing.
Yeah.
Why we had a great January sale for everyone and great July sale coming up for the summer because I overbought. And so, but that's a costly mistake that can actually put many businesses out of business, because when you're an entrepreneur and you look on paper like you're making all this money and you're like, well, where'd all the cash go? It's
Oh,
so
yeah.
important to know how to budget for your cash flow. And if most entrepreneurs don't even know what cash flow means. So you need to really work with some experts, freelance ones, even if it's like a glorified mentor, somebody who knows that you can just pick their brain for a while, that can teach you about cash flow and how to manage your cash. Because an inventory based model, one of the downsizes of it is it takes a lot of cash to operate it.
Right.
And your cash can be eaten up so fast overnight if you're not paying attention to it. So once you get into the product based business, the things that matter so much is like the terms that you set with your supplier. So if, let's say, you're getting paid in 30 days by your customer, and with ecom, it's instant, you're getting paid right away. And the best and most amazing world is when you don't have to pay your supplier until you've already sold that product. So let's say you can negotiate 60-day terms with your supplier. It's a lot easier on your cash flow to run your business model. Now, if
Right.
you have from your customer 90-day terms and you pay a 15-day terms with your supplier, you've got to front that cash for a very long time. So the more inventory you're accumulating, it just really compounds the problem. And a lot of people go out of business because of that. So for me, I mean, we were never anywhere near that problem point, but it was one of these things like, oh my God, I cannot believe how I had my head buried in the sand here, and it's no one's fault but mine. So,
Mhm.
as owner. So that's
Thank you
one.
for being so honest about that. And it's one of those things where you can get excited and buy too much inventory, and then you're sitting on inventory. Even with IL Beauty, we have inventory that sits here, and it's like, we got to get it moved out, and the payment terms and all of those things that you might not even think about when you start working right in the product space, but to really look at the cash flow and the terms of when people are buying and when things are due. So that's really, really good.
And then also, since we're talking about my business being a product model versus a service model, another thing to pay attention to are your minimums, your order minimums. At the beginning, when you're testing out a product, and I'll tell you, I've learned the hard way from this as well, it's better to pay a little bit more to a supplier that will let you have a smaller quantity. Because at the beginning, your first launch of a product isn't always what it's going to forever be. You'll probably improve it. And also, you don't know how much you're going to sell at the beginning. You can do a forecast.
Yeah.
So and that's been really, when we launch something brand new, I'll go to different weaving facilities to do our weaving. I pay more, but it helps me make sure I have a success before I go buy it in bulk. So
That
it's
makes a
really,
whole lot of sense because you do save a lot when you buy more, but if you're sitting on that inventory, you're not making the money back.
yes. And so different ways to, when you launch is different from when you have a seasoned product and how you purchase it. And that way you manage your cash, and then also keeping your overhead as nimble as you can, so you can flex up and down, especially with the ever changing world environment. Like right
Yes.
now, we've come out of the pandemic. We're still in the pandemic, basically, but it's really now a way of life. We were in this panic thing. Now we're just have had to learn how
Living
to,
in it. Yeah.
yeah, in this new reality. And it is what it is. And it's, even though we still have supply chain challenges and things, it's, you got to just own it and know this is what it is. And don't be like, oh, I can't wait till it goes back to the other way, because it probably won't go back to the other way. It's time now to look forward, planning with the information you have at hand, and knowing that this is the new way of life.
So would you say that being adjustable and adaptable has been key to you, like really continuing to build your business over all these years?
Yes, it just, you cannot have a fixed mindset. You've got to be watching the environment, the landscape, listening to your customers, looking at trends, listening to the world environment, and just paying attention. And then also, I love utilizing mentors that are, I don't call them my mentor because for them it would be too daunting. But I love having somebody to ask questions to that I really respect, and then I can take that in as well. So I'll I try to proceed as fearlessly as possible, but before I do that, I try to get as many data points, ask people's opinions that have been in a similar situation or space. So if I have a question about cash flow, which thankfully now, I mean, before I had nobody, I'm picking strawberries, you don't need anybody to count your pennies. But I'm fortunate enough to now have a controller and CPA and things. And so all of that is done for me. But I still have questions on how to manage it. I'll go to,
Sure.
they don't have to be in the betting space. In fact, they probably shouldn't be. It should be somebody, but that has had a similar type situation. But I'm not going to go ask the person who does my hair to give me a cash flow piece of advice. So I really,
Can you give me some feedback on this? But what I appreciate about this conversation, Jen, is that regardless of whether you're just starting your business or you have grown it into, a really recognizable brand that has a lot of outlets, cash flow is always an issue. It's always something we look at, it's always something we think about, and it's just different numbers, right? It's different volume, but it's something to be aware of. And as a business owner, especially as a female entrepreneur, ladies, we need to understand our money. It's a conversation I bring to Brilliant every single year. And it's something I'm so passionate about because why is it that most of us struggle with money? Why is it that most businesses will never reach seven figures? Actually, 12% of businesses will reach over six figures. So it's time to change it. And I love this conversation because we need to understand our money. We need to be able to look at things that make us feel uncomfortable and then take accountability, for what it is that we want to create. Do you want to find out more about this year's Brilliant event? If so, all you have to do is go to thebrillianteventlist.com and join the priority notification list. This is an intimate event for women that truly want to make a huge impact on the planet doing their genius work. So if you're at six figures and you really want to get to seven, or maybe you're at seven and you want to go to multiple seven, this event is going to support you in reaching those goals. So again, go to thebrillianteventlist.com and get priority notification. So Jen, what has been like the best piece of advice? I know you've had a lot of incredible mentors in your life. Can you remember something that someone said that you're like, oh, I still think of that today?
yeah, I so many, but and the one that came to mind right when you said it was a dear friend, mentor of mine named Chuck Martin, who actually has passed away. And I
Mm.
remember my business had lost a lot of money for some reason, and I thought my company was over. And I went to, he drove like an hour and a half to meet with him. He was gracious enough, and I showed him my numbers, and I was like embarrassed and like, oh my God, I'm a failure. And he's like, he reminded me that there's never a straight line to success. And almost every entrepreneur, every successful business has almost reached the brink of disaster before it grew to great heights. And he ended up writing a book about this, in fact. And it, that reminds me that there's never a straight line to success. One bad month, one bad year does not consider yourself a failure. You're going to learn so much from it. It's really, what do we do in these painful moments to learn from them and do better the next time? And whether it
Yeah.
means pivot our business model, whether it means we need to, it just, those moments are learning moments, they're growing pains. And I think just remembering that when these challenges come up, they are growing pains. They're not deeming us a failure. That's
Yeah.
been
Oh,
the
Jen, I
best.
feel like you are inside my head right now. I mean, I literally feel like I have this conversation so often, even internally with my team. Like we'll hit a certain milestone and then I feel like we go back and then we go up and I'm like, okay, growing pains. We're
Yeah.
just going through growing pains and how grateful that we get to experience them because there's a lot of businesses that don't, and coming from that place of gratitude, but also then saying, what do we strategically need to do next? Right, to get to a healthier, place within the organization. So I love that so much. And I really appreciate you like being transparent because we all go through it. Doesn't matter where you're at in your business. We all go through those highs and lows and just remembering that it's part of being an entrepreneur and taking risks. I always say, like, Jen, people don't understand the risk reward that we deal with every single day in our life, right? It's like this constant risk reward. Yeah.
It's true. And don't believe what you see on social media, whether it be a person's personal life, a person's business life. It's the easiest way to get yourself down. I hardly look at my social media at all because I don't ever want to get into that comparison mode, and just really know that everyone's looking their best. Everyone's showing their successes. We never put our failures on social media. In fact, the people that put their failures on social media, people are like, oh, that person must be crazy. I can't believe they talk to me press. Like, that's just, why would they do that? So you're not really seeing the real lives of all of us. We all, in our personal lives and everything, we have highs, we have lows, we have feelings, we have emotions. And so the people you surround yourself with should also hopefully be vulnerable and transparent with those things, so that you're having real conversations and real relationships, whether it be personal and business.
Yep, absolutely. And Jen, I cannot tell you how grateful I am to have you as part of my circle and to have those times with you that we get to laugh and cry and do all the things, because it is just life. And, we get to do something that we really love, but it doesn't always mean that it's easy. And I think it more than anything, for someone to hear that today, that just because something might feel challenging right now doesn't mean that there's not incredible success on the other side of that.
It's so true. Absolutely. Well, and I appreciate you so much. We've had a long journey together, which has been wonderful. It's like,
Yes, we have.
okay, yes.
Well, Jen, I mean, I could talk to you about a gazillion other things, but let's wrap it up with our signature question. So, what does inspired living mean to you?
Another good question. Off the top, inspired living means to me, um, identifying what makes me happy and fulfilled, and what I really want in my life, and having that solidified, and then working toward it every day, not making commitments to things that don't get me closer to my personal fulfilled and inspired life, and not comparing it to somebody else's level of themselves, and really digging deep. I used to be someone who pulled everybody for their opinion, and that's been my personal challenge, is to just dig deep
Hmm.
with myself, know that my personal core really knows what inspires me, and that's uniquely different from everybody else, and to stop comparing to anyone else. And for me, that's inspired living, just getting deep with my authenticity and what I truly, truly want, despite what anyone else would think, and then moving forward with that type of a life. So
Oh,
that's what came.
that is so beautiful. It cracks me up. I have to share a really quick story. I think it was back, I'm going to really date this. I think it was like 2017 or so, before we launched the new website. And I remember you saying to me, Carrie, I love you so much. I get what you do, but I have no idea what you do. Like, I can't understand on your website what you do. I don't really know. So, like,
Sure,
I
I totally.
remember so much. And now I'm like, Jen, what does inspired living mean to you? Because back then, I just so remember, like, Carrie, I have no idea what you do. And so I appreciated that honest feedback. And I talk about that. Like, sometimes we think we know what we do, but does the world really know what you do? And how do you actually get really clear with that message and put yourself out there in a way that is inspiring, that is in alignment, where you're not looking for validation? And I just appreciate the honesty and the transparency that we have with each other. And I think it's really important that you find your tribe. If you're listening to this or you're watching this and you're like, I need this group, first of all, come to Brilliant this year. But also, like, don't be afraid to ask for help. I think that's one of the
Yeah,
things that I think we can both say we've learned, is raise a hand when you need for help. But also, Jen, what you just said about your definition of inspired living, it's so easy to ask everyone else what they think. And I think that can be one of the most harmful things to a business, because no one knows you but you. No one knows like your vision like you do. And if you're always looking for outside validation, it's like trusting intuition, trusting yourself. And I know that's played a huge part in you growing your business.
I would say yes. I'm not looking for exterior validation is absolutely correct, but I do consult with a lot of experts, but not necessarily just friends that aren't an expert in that area, because then that can, like you're saying, that can really mess with your business. You just have
Right.
to make sure that you're asking the right people the right kind of questions. You have certain friendships for certain types of things. You have certain business mentors for certain business things. You've got different experts and consultants and things. So I think just making sure you're being mindful of who you're getting that advice from to
Right.
make a difference.
Yes, absolutely. So Jen, if someone's interested, and I know they are because these sheets and everything that you have on your site, and that's what I love about you. Like everything that you do is beautiful and it's high end and it's accessible. So how does someone get to know your brand better? Where's the best place for them to connect with you?
And our website is jenniferadams.com. And then we also are on Facebook and Instagram. And we're actually just starting TikTok. I don't even know how to do that. Don't
You
ask
are
me.
gonna TikTok. Look at you,
Darn.
Jennifer
Oh
Adams.
my goodness. Yeah. We actually filmed some TikTok the other day, but yeah, it's fun to evolve, and we are a little behind the times on that. But yeah, jenniferadams.com would be the
So
best.
Jennifer, are you saying that video is an important aspect to growing your business moving forward?
So I'm told. Okay, yes, it is. It is.
Rumor has
Yeah,
it.
rumor has it. And so, yes,
All
and
right.
that's the thing, just learning to be comfortable with the uncomfortableness of it. And I know you hit me over the head with that constantly, like get out there, be out there more often. And it does make a huge difference. I think Instagram just switched over to where it has to be all video.
All
And
video.
it does. And so you kind of need to be on video. And now I like it. I don't think of it anymore. It just doesn't, half the time I don't have makeup on when I'm on video, even though I probably should, but it's just something that we need. Yeah, you have to do it.
You heard it from Jennifer Adams, my friends. Video is a must. All right, Jen, you know how much I love you. Thank you so much for sharing your story. Thank you for being a part of my life. Thank you for pouring into the Inspired Living community. And I can't wait till our next wine night.
Thank you. Me too. All right. Thanks so much. It was
Okay.
so good.
Mwah.
Bye.
Thank you, hon. Bye.
You've just heard another uplifting episode of Inspired Living with Carrie Murphy, the podcast. I hope you loved it. If you haven't yet, please subscribe, rate, and review this podcast. And if you'd like to know more about Inspired Living or to get your hands on many of our awesome free resources, such as the Be Studio Ready Guide, simply visit us at inspiredliving.tv/podcast. Remember, your vision is your destiny, and we're here to help you bring it to life. Join me again next week for another extraordinary episode.